we have seen three of the padarthas or categories: dravya, guna and karma. Now we will see what is this category called Sāmānya. Sāmānya is, or the universal, is a padartha or a category based on which you can say that this is belonging to this category. So I can say that this is a curtain because this has something called as the Sāmānya of curtain, or the universal of curtain hood in it. I can say that this is a remote because it has a universal called remoteness or remote hood in it. I can say this is a watch because it has the universal called watch hood in it. Now this watch will be different from the watch that you are wearing, the watch that your teacher is wearing or your friend is wearing, etc. But we can call, as soon as I see a watch, I will be able to say, yeah, that's a watch. Why? How am I able to do that? Because it has some entity in it called the Sāmānya, or the universal called watch hood or watchness in it. So it is the criteria based on which you can classify the various entities into this or that type, and it inheres in the categories called dravya, guna and karma. So how are you able to say that this is brown? So there are different things which are brown, isn't it? This cow is brown, let us say, that chocolate is brown, or this bottle is brown, let us say. But how are you able to say that all of these are brown? Because it has the universal called brown. Similarly, you will find red in some uniform, you will find red in some flower, or you will find red in some other entity or dress, let us say. How are you able to say that all of these are red? Because it has some universal called redness or red hood in it. Similarly, if I am walking, the style in which I am walking will be different from the style in which you are walking, or your parent is walking, or something like that. But how are you able to identify that all of these are the actions of walking? Because they have the universal called walkingness inherent in all of them. All the substances have some walkingness inherent in that particular action. So that is how you are able to classify the action into that particular category. And this Sāmānya is eternal because it is an sort of an abstract entity. It is eternal. However, though we are able to say that all of these belong to the same category, we are able to distinguish this curtain from another curtain, isn't it? How are we able to do that? It is because of the next padartha called Viśēṣa or particularity. Particularly, it applies to the atoms that go into making of this particular curtain. According to the Viśēṣika, each atom is different, qualitatively different from another atom. There are some traditions that don't believe this. For them, all atoms are qualitatively the same. But for the Viśēṣika, each atom, even if you take each atom of earth or each paramanu of earth, one paramanu is different from another paramanu, because it has one Viśēṣa, it has another Viśēṣa. So that is why, and since all the composite entities that we see here are made up of these paramanu, this curtain is different from this curtain. This remote is different from the remote maybe you have. This watch is different from the watch that you have, because of this thing called Viśēṣa. Please note that Viśēṣa is not an attribute, it is not a guna, it is not a quality or property, it is a separate padartha altogether, right? Because it cannot fit the definition of the guna. So it applies primarily to the ultimate building blocks, which are the paramanu. Each paramanu is different from another paramanu, that is why the composite entity is also different. And since the paramanus are infinite, this Viśēṣa also is infinite. So the Sāmānya was one and it was eternal, whereas the Viśēṣa are infinite and exist in the infinite paramanu that are there. And all of these padarthas, whatever I spoke till now, dravya, guna, karma, Sāmānya, Viśēṣa, are all held together by this glue, this metaphysical ontological glue called Samavāya, or the inherence relationship. So it is a special or specific kind of relationship that exists between specific types of entities. So as I already explained, the contact or the relation that this remote has with my palm is not called Samavāya. By the Viśēṣika or the Nyaya would not call this relation as Samavāya, because it is easily separable. Whereas the Samavāya relation is somewhat which is much more permanent. It is permanent. Only by the destruction of the entity that relation can be destroyed. So that kind of a relation, originally in the Viśēṣika Sutras, it was meant as the relation that exists between cause and effect. So what is the relation between cause and effect? It is not simply contact, it is a Samavāya, it is an inherence relationship, but later on it was also extended to other things. For example, part and whole. What is the relationship between part and whole? It is a inherence relationship. Similarly, quality and substance. So the quality, the black color inheres in this particular remote, so you have to use the technical term Samavāya in this particular remote. Similarly, action inheres in the substance. So when this remote goes up like this, at that time the motion inheres in that particular substance. Similarly, the relationship between universal and particular. So for example, this is a particular remote. I told that this has a universal called remoteness. So the relationship between this particular remote and the universal or Sāmānya called remoteness is the Samavāya relationship. And lastly, if you take a Paramanu, the ultimate building block of composite entities, I told that each Paramanu has a Viśēṣa. The relationship between them is also a Samavāya relationship. So this is a very specific kind of a relationship which exists only between these types of entities: part and whole, quality and substance, action and substance, particular and universal, and the Paramanu, which is the ultimate building block of all composite entities, and the Viśēṣa. And as the Viśēṣika Sutra says, the relationship between cause and effect also is a Samavāya relationship. So just to recap, this Samavāya is the ontological glue that holds all of the previous padarthas together. So with this, we have seen the six categories which were explicitly mentioned in the Viśēṣika Sutras. First we saw dravya, like this remote, this cloth, this kurta, this watch, etc. These are all classified under one category called dravya. They have qualities or attributes inherent in them, like this brown color, this form that is there, etc. These are all inherent in the particular dravya. Those kinds of padarthas are called guna. Then each of these dravyas is capable of action. For example, I can throw this sideways, down, etc. That is another category called karma. Then there is another padartha based on which you are able to classify this into its category called remote, etc. That kind of a padartha is called Sāmānya. But you are able to distinguish this remote from another remote. That is because of another category called Viśēṣa. And all of these are held together by the Samavāya relationship. So this in brief are the 6 categories of the Viśēṣika categorization of reality.